You can draw this in Procreate. In this tutorial, we are going to create this cockatoo. And I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. As always, you don't need any experience with Procreate or with drawing as long as you follow my steps. In the end, you'll end up with this cockatoo. At least it should look pretty similar. Just look at these results from previous You Can Draw This tutorials to give you some confidence. Or check these awesome results from my patrons at Patreon. There you can watch even more Procreate tutorials. For this tutorial, all you need is a canvas of 2300 pixels by 3000 pixels. I have a color palette for you, which you can download through the link in the description. And we'll be using free brushes only, brushes that are already in the Procreate app, and some brushes that you can find in my treasure chest brush pack. You can get that through Free From Flow. Now, if you're ready, let's get started. The first thing we'll do is change our background color. We are going to do that by going to the layer menu here in the upper right corner and then click background color. And then you can pick the first color in the first row of the color palette. Now we are going to grab a brush. We are going to use the monoline brush, which you can find under calligraphy. And for the color, we are going to use this first color in the second row. Now I have the opacity set to 100% and the size is at 15%. Now the first thing we'll do is create an oval. Something like this. Hold your pen in place to make it snap to a quick shape and make it about this size. Now let's zoom out on our canvas just a little bit and we are going to move it down. We are going to use the move tool for that. That's the little arrow here in the upper left corner. Let's zoom out even more. We are going to push it down to about here. And then we are going to use the Liquify tool. You can find that under the little magic wand here. Then go to Liquify. We'll have to zoom out again a little bit. Set it to push. Turn off distortion and momentum. Pressure is set to max and you can play around with the size. Let's go for 50%. And just push on the outside a little bit to change the shape a bit to like a bean shape or a cockatoo body shape, which it doesn't look like at all. Just try to follow this shape, create something that looks a bit like this, but don't worry too much about it. We are going to create another circle. We'll go to the layer menu, create a new layer by clicking the plus. Then we'll still be using the monoline brush. And we are going to draw another oval. Hold your pen in place again to make it snap to the quick shape tool. Then go for something like this. Then you can tap edit shape here at the top. Move it down a little bit till there is almost no space in between here. And create something that looks a bit like this. And then you can just click the brush, for example, to get out of that menu. So this is the start of our cockatoo. Now we are going to the layer menu and we are going to merge these two layers. You can do that by tapping the top one and then using merge down, or you can pinch them together. But somehow that often doesn't work for me. So let's just use this way. Now let's fill these shapes by dragging in the color. This is already starting to look like a cockatoo. Now let's go to the treasure chest brush pack and use the round chalk brush. The opacity of the brush is at 100% and let's set the size to 30%. And now we are going along the edges to add some texture there. Here we are going to create something like a neck. Go along the edge to add that texture. We're going to make something of a neck here as well. And fill this area. Now we are going to make the brush a little bit smaller. Let's go for 12%. And we are going to add, well, I'm not even sure what it's called. like that little plume thing on top of the cockatoo's head. It's shaped a bit like this. Looks a bit like a finger sticking up. I don't know, weird finger. We are going to carve this cockatoo a bit. Add some like feathers sticking out here as well. But you can also switch to the eraser by clicking and holding the eraser. It'll switch to the round chalk as well. And then you can use it to carve the cockatoo. We'll cut some off on this side. This is where its beak will be. Let's carve a little bit here. Let me zoom out just a little bit and switch back to the brush. I think we can make this a little bit longer. And we'll add some feathery shapes here. Some semicircles, some wobbles, and some feathers sticking out here. Now we are going to create a new layer by going to the layer menu and clicking the plus. Now we are going to create the beak. Let's go back to the monoline brush first. Then we'll go and use this color over here, the second color in the first row. And now let's create an oval again. Hold your pen in place to make it snap to a quick shape. And then you can use edit shape to move it around. It should be placed about here. And then drag in the color to fill it. Now we are going to erase a part of this beak shape. It's not really a beak shape yet. Of this oval, we are going to tap and hold the eraser. Now it is switched to the monoline brush. Let's make it a bit smaller. 25%. We are going to make a wavy line here. We'll start just below halfway and make a wavy shape like this. And then we can erase the rest. Can make the brush bigger if you want to be faster. I also want to erase a part here, make that shape a little bit different. And then we are going to use the Liquify tool. Let's go to the magic wand, then use Liquify. And now we can push and pull this beak to change the shape a little bit. I feel like this part is a little bit too long, but we can easily fix that. Let's go and use the eraser again. And I'll just remove a little bit. Now we are going to create the other part of the beak. We are going to do that on a layer underneath this one. So first tap layer 1, then click the plus. Then still use the monoline brush. And for the color, let's pick this one, the third color in the first row. And now we are going to make an oval again. Hold your pen in place. Then use edit shape. So you can change the shape a little bit. It should be a bit like this. And then drag in the color to fill it. Now that we have our beak, it's easier to decide where we want it to be. Let's select both layers by sliding to the right. Then go to the move tool. And then you can move it around a little bit. You can also rotate it by using this green handle. And let's place it a little bit lower. I feel like this is a nice place for a beak. Then just tap the arrow again to get out of the menu. I feel like we can also push and pull the body or the head of the cockatoo a little bit. You can easily do that by going to the layer menu, using layer 1, then going to the Liquify tool. Let's zoom out a little bit. Make the brush a little bit bigger, 65%. And then you can easily push and pull parts of the cockatoo to change the shape of the face. If you're not happy with it yet, you can just easily push and pull without losing any of the textures. It gives you a lot of flexibility. Now, if your cockatoo looks a bit like this, then you're ready to move on. Let's click the magic wand again to continue. Let's first work on that nice headdress that cockatoos have. Let's zoom in a little bit again. Let's make a new layer by clicking the plus, and we are going to drag it underneath this body shape so we can paint behind that face. We are going to grab the round chalk brush again, which is part of the Free From Flow treasure chest brush pack. And for the color, we are going to use this color over here, the third color in the third row. Now we are going to start here where we have this little wobble. And we are going to make a sausage shape, or a big finger, or a banana. However you want to describe this shape. Then another one going up here. Just stay behind that white part, or white, almost white. It's coming out from there. So something like this. Then we'll make another one. We'll make one coming out from here, and it'll be not like a banana shape, but more like a leafy shape. So a bit like this. It's thicker in the center. And it should be lower than this long feather. Imagine that there's a curve going like this. And let those feathers that we are creating now, let those follow that arch. And we'll start here. Make another like leafy shape. So thinner at the top and then thicker in the center. And don't worry if your shape is looking off. And of course you can just tap and hold the eraser so that it's set to the round chalk. And then you can just carve these feathers. Remove something. You don't have to get it right away. So now one more over here. It's more towards horizontal. It's following that arch that we are imagining. So a bit like this. Now we are going to make even more feathers behind these, and to make them behind these yellow ones, we need the layer to be underneath it. So we can click the plus for a new layer and then drag it underneath. And for the color, we are going to switch to this orange, the second color in the third row. We'll start here and make another like banana shape just behind that yellow feather. Then we'll make another like leafy shape over here, thicker in the center, and then thin towards the top. A bit like this. Then over here, another one. Start a bit to the right from that yellow one. You can make it touch the other one here. Then curve upwards, and then back down. And then color it in by hand. That gives a nice texture. Then over here we'll start just behind the yellow one and follow that line of that almost horizontal feather. great work so far. Now let's give our cockatoo a little eye. Let's make a new layer to do that. It has to be on top of layer 1, otherwise we won't be seeing it because this layer will be covering our eye. So click the plus for a new layer. And for the color, we are going to use this third color and the second row. And we'll still be using the round chalk brush. Now let's create a round shape. Since eyes are usually pretty round, you can hold your pen in place to make it snap to the quick shape, and then if you hold your finger on the screen, it'll snap to a perfectly round circle. And then just color it in by hand. Then we'll add a pupil. Let's use this color for that. That's the fourth color in the first row. And let's add a pupil. You can also use the quick shape tool by holding your pen in place, tapping one finger on the screen. You can also use edit shape to move it around a bit. And then click the brush to get out of there. Now for a little highlight, I want to use pure white. Actually, you can double tap here in the white area to grab pure white. And then just add a little highlight over here. Now, since the eye is on a separate layer, it's super easy to move it around, make it smaller or bigger by using the arrow tool. You can just move it around if you want to place it somewhere else, make it more Picasso or like a Cyclops cockatoo. I just want it to be a regular cockatoo, so make it slightly smaller. And I'll place the eye over here. And then you can just click the arrow again to get out of there. But just know that you can be super flexible with that. Now it's time to start adding texture and feathers to our cockatoo. It's a bit stylized right now, which is also pretty nice, but we are going to add texture. Let's go to the layer, which is layer 1. We are going to turn on alpha lock on this layer by tapping it, then using alpha lock. This way, the layer is like locked. We will only be able to paint on the shape of that cockatoo, and our paint won't go outside of it. Which of course you already know if you have been watching my tutorials, but I'll just keep reminding you. We'll still be using the round chalk brush. And for the color, we are going to use this color over here, the second color in the second row. And let's make the brush just a little bit bigger. Let's go for 30%. And we are going to add some light. Just follow the direction of this like plume feather, and we'll go along this edge. And you can leave gaps in between. That's alright because that'll add some nice texture. So make sure that you'll still see that darker yellowish color underneath. Here we'll go downwards a little bit. Like diagonal, and you can think about that shape of its wing. It's about here. So let's follow that shape and make big strokes going downwards, but still leaving some gaps. Here we'll go downwards to the left, radiating from the eye and the beak. Now we are going to grab this color over here, the fourth color in the second row. We are going to add a bit like some shadow, some darker touches. We'll go up here. And we'll also have some shadowy parts here all along the right side of the cockatoo. You can also make a tiny circle just around the eye of the cockatoo. We'll add a few dabs here and some along his or her chest. Now we'll go even darker. Let's use this color over here. That's the sixth color And the second row, let's go along this front side. Add a little bit of grayish over there. And also along the chest. Color it in. Just about to here. I'll leave some gaps in between so you can still see some light shining through. And let's also add a little bit around the eye, on the left side of the eye. Now we'll switch to the fifth color in the second row and add some lighter gray over here. Make some dabs so you still see that darker gray shining through. And a little bit over here. Then we'll go ahead and add light colors to the cockatoo. We'll use the third color in the second row. And now let's add lighter feather color. But do make sure that you'll still see the other colors shining through in places. We'll leave a little gap over here. And we'll go a bit horizontal here, and then we'll move downwards, go diagonal. In this direction. We'll make the wing lighter over here. Make short strokes and leave some gaps. I want to be able to go on top of the beak here. Now we are going to do that by first selecting layer 2, click it, then use select, then go to layer 1, click it and use clear. Then we'll go to layer 3, tap that layer, use select, then go back to layer 1, tap it again and use clear. Now the area of the beak is removed from this layer, so now we can move it on top of the others. We also need to move the eye along with it. So now it's moved on top of the beak, and now we can paint over the beak. You can see that alpha lock is turned off now, and that's good because we don't want to stay inside of the shape anymore. We are going to use the chalk pencil, which is also part of the Free From Flow Treasure Chest brush pack. And we are going to have it set to 100% opacity. And the size is at 10%. Now let's just go and add some short feathers going over the beak area. Go along the edge, go over the beak, but also go outside of its face. Let's make the brush a bit bigger, 25%. So have some feathers sticking out. Over here as well. And some feathers here on the chest. We're using that light color, go over the chest area a little bit. Perhaps over here. And some around the neck. Add some little feathers sticking out. And we also need like that yellow cheek that a cockatoo has. Let's use the round chalk brush again. And for the color, we are going to use this yellow over here. That's the 7th color in the second row. And let's add that yellow cheek area. So it's a bit below the beak area and almost, well, as high as the eye. So like this, maybe a little bit more. This is nice. Now we are going to move to the Smudge Tool. That's the little finger here at the top. And set it to the smudgy hairbrush, which is also in the treasure chest pack. Now the opacity of this brush is set to 75% and the size is set to 22%. And we are going to start here at the top and move downwards, adding some texture here. You can move downwards and also back upwards. And also a bit towards the outside. You can go in and out again. Here we'll go in a little bit. Adding the idea of feathers here. And here you can also go upwards and add a little bit of texture. Here we'll move the light area over the yellow area a bit. Drag it over to add that texture of feather. And here you can move the yellow on top of the white area a little bit. And you can also go back and move some white over the yellow to push and pull these colors and let that yellow spot merge with the feathers on the face. Let's also drag these a little bit, adding some fluffy texture. You can also do it here along the wing. So you can move colors on top of each other, adding that feathery texture. Here we can do it with these feathers going over the beak. And here along its chin and chest. Move outwards a little bit. You can do a little bit along the eyes. I think this is looking good. Let's move on to the feathers on its headdress. Let's move to layer 5 first. Let's turn on alpha lock so we won't be able to go outside of the shape. Then let's use a round chalk brush and grab this first color in the third row. And we are going to add some shadow, but we'll leave an orange edge just on the outside. That's usually where edges are. So a little bit like this, we'll leave a little light edge. And for this one, then we'll move to the yellow color. That's the third color in the third row. Let's make the brush a bit smaller, 12%, and add a little lighter edge. Just a little touch for some color variation there. Finally this one. Then move on to the feathers in front. That's layer 4. Again, turn on alpha lock. And now we are going to use the orange color. So that's the second color in the third row. Let's make the brush bigger again, 25%. And let's add some orange touches. Follow the direction of these feathers. Try to stay on the inside. Leave the edges light. And now for some feathery texture, we are going to use the Smudge Tool again. But first we are going to make a selection by going to the S shape ribbon. Set it to freehand and make sure that color fill is turned off. And now we are going along the center line of this feather. Then loop around. Close the selection. Then use the Smudge Tool. And make these diagonal strokes, adding that feathery texture. Then tap and hold the selection tool and use invert. And now go back to the Smudge Tool and then go along the other side, making these diagonal strokes. and turn off the selection, and then move on to the next one. So we'll turn on the selection tool again, follow this line, center line, swoop around, close the selection, use the smudge tool, and then make diagonal strokes. Tap and hold the selection tool, use invert, go to the smudge tool, and then do the other side. And then tap the selection tool to get out of there. Then we'll move to the fine liner brush. We'll grab this light color, the 4th color in the 3rd row, and we'll make these light lines. Just let me check the size and opacity. Opacity is at 100% and the size is at 6%. And let's make a line along the center here as well, and finally on this one. Now all we have to do is add some texture to the beak. Let's go to layer 2 first, turn on alpha lock so we won't be able to paint outside of the shape, and for the brush we are going to use the dark noise brush. The opacity of the brush is at 100% and the size is at 39%. And for the color, let's grab this 3rd color in the 1st row. And let's add some bluish glow to the top beak. Then switch to the 4th color in the 1st row. Now let's make the brush a bit smaller. Let's go to 13%. And let's go along that outer edge, darkening this edge as well on the left side. And then let's go and grab the 5th color in the 1st row for some highlight. Let's make the brush even smaller, 4%. And let's add a little light here. Make a rounded shape and add some more light here. Then go along the lower edge over here. For some light over there as well. And then we'll move to the other layer, layer 3. Again, turn on alpha lock so we won't be able to paint outside of the shape. First, let's grab the 4th color in the 1st row. Make the brush a bit bigger again, 10%. And darken the lower area. Then switch back to that light color, the 5th color in the 1st row. Make the brush smaller again, 3%, and light this edge over here a bit. And there is our cockatoo. I feel like he's looking a little bit derpy, but I actually like him this way. I hope you like your cockatoo as well. I hope you enjoyed following this tutorial. And if you did, then don't forget to leave a little thumbs up, a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That way you can support the channel and make sure that we'll keep creating these You Can Draw This video tutorials. Me and this derpy cockatoo would like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time for the next You Can Draw This video tutorial.